Welcome to the Breakdown with INFB. I'm your host, Heidi Gant. Our listeners know that agriculture encompasses so many different things, and farmers come in all shapes and sizes. Contrary to popular belief, we do grow more than just corn and soybeans in Indiana. So today we have Joe McGuire joining us on the podcast to talk about one of the more unique ways of growing food. The St. Joseph County Farm Bureau member is the CEO of Pure Green Farms in South Bend, where they grow hydroponic lettuce. So welcome, Joe, to the podcast.
Thank you, Heidi. Great to be here.
Great. Well, Joe, let's just start with your background. How did you get into hydroponics?
Oh, sure. Yeah, so I'm a salty old veteran from the fresh produce industry. I got started out in Salinas, California. I'm originally from the Northeast, but went to school in Tucson, Arizona, and then wound up in California. And so that was back in the late 80s, early 90s. And I've been around lettuce for a long time now. But I started out in Salinas, California, and through a very traverse way around the country, wound up here in South Bend, Indiana, doing hydroponics. Not my invention. I was recruited for the position, but I had been researching it for a while on the new technology that had already taken hold in tomatoes and other vine crops like peppers and cucumbers. And then all of a sudden, lettuce was starting to come on, and that piqued my interest. And this opportunity came up in South Bend, and here I am.
Interesting. So did you grow up in a kind of farming world at all? That was just kind of something that you grew to find that you liked produce?
Yeah, no, I actually grew up in New York City,
Oh, a city
far
guy,
from
yeah.
it. Yeah, so I'm originally from Staten Island, and but I wanted to leave New York, and so I wound up in college at the University of Arizona, and through that I met people that were in the fresh produce business, and so that's kind of how I wound up there.
Okay, interesting. Well, and I mean, obviously, a lot of our listeners are farmers who grow food, so they
Mhm.
understand that whole process. But can you kind of talk through the whole process of hydroponics and how that works for people who aren't familiar with it?
Sure. Yeah, it's very involved, and it's really important to understand what we're doing is trying to duplicate the perfect climate and circumstances for the plants to grow, which sounds to any grower that would be, oh, well, yeah, obvious. We do the same thing in the field, but in the field, you obviously, open field, you get a lot of adverse things like freeze and hail and excessive rain and so on. And so we're in controlled environment agriculture. We're growing in a greenhouse, and the technique that we're using is hydroponics, and then a subset of that is nutrient film technique. And so in essence, what we're doing is we're creating a climate inside a greenhouse that allows us to have the plants thrive and battle against whatever's going on outside of the greenhouse. And then we're feeding the plants by using water and nutrients that are put into the water. And then because we're in a controlled environment, agricultural setting, we're able to avoid having the use of pesticides or herbicides. We use integrated pest management, but we're not using regular synthetic pesticides to control our crop.
It's so interesting. So, yeah, obviously, I feel like one of the biggest headaches for farmers is obviously weather and
Mhm.
um, having weather decide how your crop is going to do that year. So, that's an interesting thought is to not really have to worry about that. Are you like in really high demand right now, especially like in the Midwest or the areas that are really cold and unable to grow things year round?
Yeah, it's in terms of the demand, obviously you can get West Coast lettuce. Like right now, the lettuce deal is in Yuma in Mexico, and there's plenty of lettuce that's coming out of that. And so the demand that's been created by CEA is a function of what we're able to grow. And so we're growing using seed varieties that have been bred specifically for this type of growing, for this, because we use artificial light, and then we obviously take advantage of the sun and the nutrients, and we're able to control the humidity, we're able to control the temperature, and then we're able to add CO2 as we make heat. We're able to cool down the exhaust and then bring that CO2 into the greenhouse. And once you have that CO2, with the sunlight hitting the greenhouse, then the plants really start to take off. But the varieties that we use are relatively unique and cannot be grown out in the field, or you would need very pristine, consistent circumstances for those to grow, which is never going to happen. And so we're able to really grow a beautiful plant that's got a lot of flavor. It's got beautiful view to the eyes. It's got a lot of crunch, and it's just been in demand because of that.
Yeah, interesting. So another thing, obviously, other than weather that is affecting a lot of farmers is the use of farmland, which is becoming more and more scarce every year, I feel like, due to a myriad of reasons. But I think that's something that would is interesting about hydroponics is you use a lot less land and you don't need a lot of land or water or things like that. So would you say hydroponics is the answer to some of those issues that we're having in the US? I mean, I guess probably around the world, with population growth and development growth and all of that. But I would think that hydroponics is becoming more and more interesting to people to get into.
It is. It's not inexpensive to get into this. There is a high capex to get into it, but yes, we have a more efficient use of land than your typical field crop. And I think that as to your point, as development continues, yeah, there is a way to do this better. But more importantly, is that we're able to grow a nice, beautiful, healthy crop in a place that's never been able to do that 365 days out of the year. And so we're sitting right in the middle of South Bend, more or less. I mean, we're on the south side of it, but we're right at the crossroads of so many different population centers, and we can easily distribute and right after we harvest the product and get it in a package, as long as those trucks are moving and they go through the distribution warehouses quickly, we can move product very quickly.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that the West Coast people are not efficient. They are, but they're physically further away,
Really
and
far.
so
Yeah.
it takes more time. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So, I mean, obviously, growing produce requires a lot of labor. And I think labor is a national issue that we deal with, especially
Hmm.
on all kinds of farms, especially produce. Do you see that problem? Do you have that problem too? Trying to get people to help you
Hmm.
harvest?
Yeah. So we really, in order for the model to work, you have to have automation. And so there's different degrees of automation, and we're getting a lot better at that. But you still need people. You need people that are watching the crop. You need people for maintenance. You need people for all of your harvest and packing. And so, yeah, we have the same struggles like everybody else to get the best people and to maintain them, keep them on site. And but we've made incredible strides, but we're always pushing for more and more automation. A big element to growing this type of crop indoors is having that plant transport system. So we're able to send the plants in. We start from a seed, we send it into the greenhouse, and then it goes through its different growth stages, and then through this automated system, it comes back out as a full plant, and then we harvest it, and then package it, and then palletize and ship it on a truck.
Yeah. So I feel like hydroponics I know it's not new,
Hmm.
but I feel like it's newer to people. How do you see it growing or evolving over the next 5, 10 years? Do you see this growing?
Yeah, and again, I'll reference the vine crops. You hardly see a fresh tomato in the supermarket that doesn't come from a greenhouse. And I don't think lettuce is going to be the same way because it's such a massive category. Um, but it is growing at a rate of 30%
Oh,
within our subcategories of value-added salad. So and it's been growing year over year. I think the most recent retail number is about to surpass $500 million in a total value-added category that's about $10 billion annualized.
wow. So do you guys see yourself getting into more than just lettuce?
Not at this point. We are looking at an expansion, and we are looking at ways that we can grow more varieties and more types of lettuces, and then potentially herbs. And that's all a function of the equipment that we choose to do in the expansion.
Interesting. So, what's next for you? What's next for Pure Green Farms? What do you kind of see on the horizon, or what do you want more traditional farming people or consumers to know?
Yeah, I think that it's you got to get the distinction between the difference of what's grown indoors and what's grown out in the field. And again, you could talk to some of the chefs here in town, or even some of the schools that we sell to, and then most importantly, consumers. I get a lot. I've become famous in the sense of people come up to me, "Is that your lettuce that I bought?" And it's in an Earthbound Farm, Great Lakes greenhouse brand. That's our marketing company that sells it for us. And yeah, the distinction is the flavor. You don't have to use as much of our lettuce to fill a bowl. It's got beautiful crunch, doesn't require a lot of dressing, and even if you eat it raw, you can taste that sweet flavor because that's how the seeds were made. They were bred for flavor and for crispiness, and so it just really makes a beautiful salad. So if you like nice salads, give us a try.
Love that. Well, I know you're in various retail stores. Are
hmm
they nationwide?
No, we're in
Just in our
about a
area?
yeah, it's about a 300-mile radius, and we are in Meyer, we're in Walmart, we're about to be in the Indiana Kroger's. That's about to start. I think we're going to be in a total of about 60. We're in Whole Foods, we're in Jewel in Chicago, and then we're in Costco. We're in half of a DC and out of Morris, Illinois for Costco.
Okay, great.
That was a
Well,
new one.
all right, everybody go
Mhm.
out and buy his lettuce. You made it
Outstanding.
sound very good, so I would love to go out and get some of your lettuce and make a salad tonight.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, and it's interesting because when you go out to California, there's a whole culture and industry that was built around this. And what I'm hoping for is that we do the same thing here, which we start to become known for this type of lettuce that we grow. And I'm sure there's going to be other varieties. Like, for example, we started growing a butter leaf that is just wonderful and it's really starting to take off the sales. And so we're just going to learn with every variety. We've got 5 varieties in there right now, and we hope to expand on that.
Well, very cool. All right, thank you, Joe. I appreciate it, and hopefully we get to talk again soon in a couple years and see where you're at then. And hopefully people have learned a little bit about hydroponics today. So thanks again for your time.
Great. Thank you, Heidi.
If you enjoyed our conversation today, make sure to subscribe to The Breakdown with INFB and even rate and review us to let us know how we're doing. For more information, visit www.infb.org/podcast.